Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for intel, forecasts, and success strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Ball. Thanks for being with us. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. This is video training for commercial agents. It's brand new. It's awesome. Check out their website, CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Today, we have an awesome show for you. Deloitte puts out a report every year. This year, it's called the 2018 Real Estate Outlook. Good year, right? Good year's coming up. And they put out this report every year. It's great. It gives us a look at what's going on in the commercial real estate world, what to expect moving forward. Please welcome my guest. It's Jim Berry. Jim is partner with Deloitte. He's the U.S. Real Estate and Construction Leader. And he's joining us on Skype. Jim, thanks for being with us.
Michael, thanks for having me today.
Well, Jim, looks like the overall theme of the report this year, and check out this report. We'll have a link to it under the video or in the podcast links, so check it out, is create value amid uncertainty and change. So that's the overall view, and then you kind of start off with the convergence of disruption, and there certainly has been a lot of technology created for commercial real estate in the last few years.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. When we sat back and thought about this year's outlook, which is an annual publication that we put out, we really wanted to focus on not just the fact that disruption is occurring, but that there's really this convergence of various factors that's occurring that goes really kind of the whole gamut. What's the real impact? And when you look around the corner, the impact of technology on various aspects of the real estate industry, but also all the way through talent and people. How's that going to be influenced and impacted as we look forward?
Right, and some of the technology involves robotics, right? What do you see there?
Yeah, definitely. Things that are moving quickly by leaps and bounds is in the areas of robotics and cognitive, and really two different areas. But first off, to remind everyone, robotics aren't robots. Robotics are really designs that allow people to take fairly routine tasks that may take a lot of time, require a lot of data, to basically assemble that data more quickly in a more user-friendly fashion to allow individuals and professionals to more quickly utilize that data to make decisions, to interface with their customers and their clients, and to drive either the transaction or the interface with the customer in a better fashion.
Yeah, that's a good point. And some of that technology is involved in funding, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And it's actually a great intersection of a lot of different things. You know, when you look into the fintech arena and see some of the things that are occurring there, fintech, you know, it's a term that's used a little broadly, but really falls into two categories. There's the operating aspect of companies today in the fintech arena, but then also within the funding or capital sourcing arena. You know, there's some great leaps and bounds occurring with some innovation that's occurring within certain fintechs and investments they're making, whether or not it's leasing, whether or not it's appraisals, whether or not it's better ways and mechanisms to gauge the operations of a office building or any kind of real estate, you know, to better control cost or to better bring a customer experience such that, for example, in retail, managing or understanding traffic flow, the nature and buying of customers or buying patterns of customers, and how best to team between the real estate company and the retail company, for example, on how to utilize that data.
Yeah, and what else is an example out there, Jim, do you see that is really impacting CRE world today?
Yeah, it goes across a lot of gamuts, but to kind of stick with, you know, this idea of utilizing technology. You know, if you take a base transaction and let's say that you know, you're trying to work a deal, you know, we've all been there and we've all been part of it. And if, depending on the complexity of the deal, you know, and the nature of it, that timeline on the transaction can actually, you know, be quite long. let's just take the example of a basic appraisal. Okay, so the information that has to be gathered in an appraisal situation, is readily available data. And however, we're still utilized for a large part, certain mechanisms in place that have been there for a while. And then we end up with a somewhat, point in time report, understandable and very effective for its use. But now with the use of both certain aspects of robotics as well as other aspects, gathering that data in a quicker fashion, pulling it together and shortening the timeline on the front end for the appraisal and making it more user-friendly, such that as updates are required, once again, depending on the length of the transaction, it can more easily be attained. That's just one example, but of really trying to shorten the time frame.
And what type of shortening time frame would you see?
It can be extreme. I mean, there are folks out there now when they really are looking at aspects of what they can do, are talking about shortening time frames from 30 days to 5, 6, 7 days, and something like that, which is pretty amazing. And it also, once again, and I think this is really important, all of these tools that we talk about are just that, they're tools to take a process down and gather that information so that the true focus of the individuals and the professionals can be on the transaction or the customer and better serving that purpose as opposed to data gathering.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Sometimes when I see challenges in a transaction, it's because the people really haven't interacted enough, and maybe they've relied too much on technology and email and all sorts of systems. But like you said, they are making it more efficient, are making things more faster. They're making it faster. What about the one things I think that slows down transactions is picking funding, creating the funding, the capital stack. What do you see moving forward there? And is there some disruption, some changes moving forward there?
Yeah, and that moves us to the second part of the fintech that we talked about, and that is the funding. And it's really a dynamic that's really getting its legs under it, and adds a new element to potential funding mechanisms. Crowdsourcing is certainly there are certainly companies now that have really gained momentum and are offering a great platform as an additional opportunity for at least certain aspects of real estate. I think the one thing, and it also is providing another mechanism for investors to broaden their footprint into real estate. How to get in at a lower level, how to diversify your portfolio in real estate without actually taking ownership of the property. It's providing that mechanism. The other interesting part about that part from a crowdfunding perspective is it's really forcing us all to look at the cost of the transaction from that perspective. Is speed, because clearly that's one of the advantages, but also the cost is normally at a lower level, which challenges all of us across all the platforms of funding to say, how do we increase the speed of obtaining additional capital and other mechanisms and at a lower cost of capital?
So what is all this technology, this convergence of technology, doing to property level performance, real estate values? What do you expect moving forward?
That's a great question, and it really, I think, I'd answer it probably in two ways. One is that the great thing about where real estate is today is that we are a well-established, well-recognized industry from a broad market perspective. So it's no longer just real estate people playing in real estate. And so that is appealing across numerous investor platforms. The other part, so you take that, and then that says, though, that we also then are held to a standard of capital attraction that goes across many different areas. So we're competing for different types of capital in different ways. And that's important to keep in mind, because going back to the fact that if we are going to successfully compete, the cost of that capital and how we manage that and our ability to provide more and more transparency as an industry only moves up. So that as people can look at the operating companies, the operating platforms, they can really see transparency. What is the strategy? How is the company operationalizing against that strategy? And what has been the success pattern against that? And providing real data to support that.
Well, from all of this, might we expect the performance of commercial real estate properties to be more stable moving forward through downturns because of this transparency?
Michael, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. And I think certainly, I've been doing this since the 80s, so I've seen more than a couple of cycles. And every cycle is different. There's no doubt about it. The cause element of it and the way that we come out of the cycle varies. But I think one of the things that we're seeing now, because of the discipline of the industry, because of the maturity of the industry, and because of the fact that this data is now more readily available and that attracts better capital and better consistent capital, that does do exactly what you're saying. It allows us to manage as an industry those peaks and valleys differently, so that we're not hitting that overbuild that then troughs down dramatically and then moves up. It's a much more disciplined approach, which should allow for a lessening of troughs.
Yeah, and that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
This last recession was a bad one, and I don't think anyone expects it to ever be that bad again. But yeah, the transparency, the information should keep us from making those kind of big mistakes before. Well, stay with us. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to talk to Jim about REITs and what to expect moving forward with technology, with commercial real estate. If you work with REITs or you are a REIT, or you're investing in REITs, and you might be investing in REITs through your stocks investments and not even know it. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.